I know your pain. You got dumped, and your ex has an avoidant attachment style, either a fearful one or a dismissive one. And you wisely went into no contact, but now you're sitting there in agonizing pain, wondering when or if this is ever going to work to bring them back. And you're tempted to reach out, I know, and you're thinking of reasons to justify why reaching out might be a good idea. Don't do that. But later in the video, I'll get into more specifics about why that's a bad idea and what you should be doing instead. Because there are actually very specific and predictable triggers that cause an avoidant ex to reach out on a specific timeline. And we're covering all of that today in this video. Hi, I'm Coach Jeff Campbell, and I'm glad you're here with me. Trigger number one, their delayed grief response finally hits. You see, avoidants feel their feelings. They really do. But in the moment, they tend to suppress them and try and pretend they're not there, but they always surface. But they might not surface for weeks or even months, depending upon how avoidant they actually are. And of course, as you might expect, fearful avoidants feel them quicker than dismissive avoidants. Fearful avoidants tend to process their feelings of grief and loss somewhere between months 2 and 3 following the breakup. And as I mentioned, dismissive avoidants take longer than that, somewhere between months 4 and 6. But when their grief finally hits and all of the coping mechanisms they're using to try and suppress those painful thoughts, when that finally happens, that is when they're going to reach out, if they ever will. But exes do come back about 55% of the time, and that includes avoidant exes. But kind of along the same lines of what I just mentioned, fearful avoidants come back faster than dismissive avoidants, and they come back more often. But when that grief finally hits, that is going to be the primary reason that they reach out. But it does not guarantee that anything has changed within them. And if nothing has changed in them, and if nothing has changed in you, and you do reconcile, you're very likely going to get the same result again later down the road. So for that reason, I don't think you should just be sitting around waiting to see if or when you hear from them. Focus on being the very best version of you that you can be. Identify the things that you did in the relationship that were destructive. Maybe you were a little needy and clingy. Avoidants often choose partners who have an anxious attachment style. And in fact, that's one of the most common pairings of the attachment styles out there. And if you think that resonates with you, then focus on your own attachment wound and starting to heal that. Attachment wounds are fluid. They don't stay the same, and they can absolutely be healed. Trigger number 2, they see you genuinely thriving without them. When they dumped you, they thought you would be miserable without them, just sitting around pathetically waiting to see if or when you ever hear from them. But instead, your social media, assuming you haven't blocked them, shows genuine and authentic growth and healing. You're posting happy, uplifting content that really reflects where you're at in your life. Now, I know if you're watching this video, you do still want them back. I get that. But you're not putting all of your eggs in that basket. You know that there's a 45% chance that they won't come back, and you're not sitting around waiting. And they notice that you're not posting sad or melancholy content. You're not posting things about lost love or heartbreak. And you're not posting things that are fishing for their attention. And I know it's tempting to do that. I've actually done that myself, but don't do that. Post things that are genuine about you and your life and how you're feeling, but avoid posting things that are sad or melancholy. Remember, we're talking about an avoidant here, and they very likely did see you as needy and clingy, so you cannot reinforce that for them by what you're posting on social. You've got to appear happy and confident as if you are truly moving on, not looking in the rearview mirror, and you don't need them in your life to feel whole and complete. Sure, you would like them back in your life, but you don't need them in your life, if you get my distinction. And your genuine detachment from them and from the relationship is actually what's going to trigger their FOMO, fear of missing out. They're afraid they made a huge mistake by dumping you, and they're afraid they're missing out on this next great chapter of your life. And so you might begin to notice them reaching out when they start to feel these feelings. And again, with the fearful avoidant, we're talking somewhere between months 2 and 4 following the breakup. And with dismissive avoidance, somewhere between months 4 and 8. And remember, different triggers will affect the dismissive and the fearful avoidant differently. So I'm going to cover several triggers in this video, and I might give slightly conflicting timelines. And that's because each of these triggers is impacting them in different ways. And they may not feel all of these different triggers, but they're bound to feel at least one or two. Real quick, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. and then destroy that subscribe button for me too. It's a great way to say thank you to me, helps me grow my channel, and I really appreciate it. Trigger number 3, their rebound relationship falls apart. Now, I know you hate the idea of them being in a new relationship, but guess what? It happens. And honestly, it probably happens more with people with an avoidant attachment style because that's one of their coping mechanisms for not feeling the pain and the grief of losing you and losing the relationship. They jump into a rebound, sometimes within days of breaking up with you. And they kind of go through all of the motions with this new person that they used to do with you. Going to your favorite coffee shops, bars, restaurants, and clubs. It's almost like they're pretending this new person is you. But guess what? Rebounds have about a 75% failure rate. So that means it's very likely if your ex is in a rebound, it's going to fail. And when it does, it's going to trigger them wanting to reach out to you. And rebounds fail because it's a surface level relationship. There's no emotional depth to it. Now, I know we're talking about avoidance here, and I know they're scared of emotional vulnerability, but if they were with you for any length of time, they probably did have some level of emotional connection with you that was deeper than surface level. So they're missing that emotional depth and safety that they felt with you. But also, new partners may not tolerate their behavior patterns as much as you did. And a lot of people who have a secure attachment style are not used to dealing with people with an avoidant attachment style who just suddenly vanish on a deep emotional level at a moment's notice for no apparent reason. A lot of people are not going to put up with that kind of behavior. But when they realize that this new person doesn't measure up and isn't you, that's what's likely going to trigger them to want to reach out to you. But be aware, in this particular situation, they probably don't actually want reconciliation. They're probably just wanting attention and validation from someone who understands them on a deeper emotional level. And the only exception I would add there is if they've done some kind of work on themselves from a healing standpoint. So if they're in therapy, that's great. If they've taken up activities like meditation or yoga or martial arts, things that nurture them on a physical and spiritual level, that's great. But if they haven't, tread lightly. Trigger number 4, a major life event or some kind of crisis in their life happens. This could be a job loss. It could be the loss of a family member. Maybe one of their parents died or a sibling. But it also could be some sort of major health crisis. Something is happening in their life that is extraordinary and affecting them on a deep emotional level. And back when they were with you, you would have been there to support them through this challenge. And if they are with somebody new, they probably don't understand them and aren't supporting them in the same way that you would have. And they're remembering back to when you supported them through turbulent waters before. But if they're going through something like this, they're going to reach out to you. And because we're talking about some sort of crisis event here, there's less of a specific timeline here. But be wary. As with the last trigger, this kind of contact is not about genuinely wanting to reconcile with you. And it does not indicate a readiness for a new healthy relationship with you. So again, tread lightly and proceed with caution. Real quick, I have a free PDF guide called The 7 Psychological Triggers That Make an Ex Regret Losing You. And you can get it for free with the link down in the description or on this card right up here. Trigger number 5, they've actually done work on themselves to heal their attachment wound. This is probably the least likely of the triggers I'm talking about here. They're very unlikely to actually do this work. And most people with an avoidant attachment style have no idea that they even have an avoidant attachment style. And no one is going to do work on an issue if they're not even aware of it. But let's assume for the moment that your ex is aware and is doing the work. Maybe they're reading the book Attached, which was my introduction to attachment styles, and I highly recommend reading it. I'll put a link to that down in the description on Amazon if you want to check it out. So in this case, if this is one of their triggers and they reach out to you, it's going to be because they are taking accountability for their behavior. And it's not just, I miss you, and it's not for more superficial reasons. And as you might expect, while this is the rarest of the triggers I'm talking about, it is the most genuine and is most likely to lead to a healthy reconciliation. But as you also might expect, this one takes the longest because genuine growth and healing takes time. So I would not expect this trigger to happen anywhere for at least 6 months following the breakup. And the easiest way to know if this is really what's going on with them when they reach out to you is they will actually take ownership of their behavior and the specific ways that they know they hurt you. And the typical avoidant never takes accountability for their actions. So if they're doing that, that's huge. Now, I know I touched on some timelines for each of those specific triggers, but now let's talk about the timeline in general of when you can expect to hear from an avoidant while you're in no contact. And I'm going to give a range here because there is a wide range of behaviors, even within the specific groups of the fearful avoidant and the dismissive avoidant. And it also depends upon how quickly you went into no contact and if you have actually stayed fully in no contact. You're not initiating contact by any means, and you're not doing silly things like looking at their Facebook or Instagram stories, which is a violation of no contact because your name will show up on a list of viewers. But fearful avoidants are most likely to reach out somewhere between the 6-week mark and the 4-month mark. Dismissive avoidance, as you might expect, somewhere between months 3 and 8. But the sad reality is that some dismissive avoidants who are extremely dismissive might take a year or more. And when they first reach out, it's not going to be big. It's not going to be overt. They're not going to call you and say, "Oh my God, I totally screwed up. Will you please take me back?" They're never going to do that. The first contact attempts are going to be things like liking your posts on social media, or maybe commenting on your posts, or just looking at your Facebook or Instagram stories. Then they might start to text you little innocuous things like, "Hey," or "What's up?" Remember, they're avoidant here. They're suppressing their emotions, but they're also deathly afraid of being too vulnerable with you and risking rejection. So they're just testing the waters. They're poking the bear to see what kind of reaction they get from you. So if they're just liking your posts on social, I would not respond in any way, shape, or form. If they comment, then just like it or heart it, but don't reply back. If they're texting you, don't ignore those if you want them back. But don't send back a novel if they sent you 3 words. Just match and mirror their level of enthusiasm. And if they take a long time to reply back to you, you take a long time to reply back to them. This is not about manipulation. This is about reinforcing for them that you are no longer still needy and clingy. If you're blowing up their phone, you're double texting, you're triple texting, and you're responding the second you hear from them, no matter how long they take to respond to you, you're going to reinforce for them that you are still needy. And meaningful contact will come after several failed attempts at tiny little communication. So they might like your posts for a month before commenting, and then they'll start to comment. And when you don't respond to that, you're just liking the comment, then that will force them to kind of up their ante. But remember what I said earlier, only about 55% of exes come back. That means 45% of the time they don't. And dismissive avoidants who are extremely dismissive are very unlikely to ever come back, no matter how much time passes. Now let's talk about what increases the likelihood that the avoidant ex will reach out to you. First, your complete silence. I've already kind of hammered this point home, but you've got to remain in no contact fully with no exceptions. I know you're tempted to reach out on their birthday or your anniversary or a holiday. Don't do that. It will completely derail your chances and it starts the clock all over again. Visible evidence of your growth and genuinely moving on and detaching from them and not sitting around waiting for them. That is incredibly attractive to them because it gets them wondering about you and it makes them wonder if you would come back even if they begged you to. And anytime somebody is wondering about you, their attraction for you is going up. And that's exactly what you want. If they're not in a rebound relationship, that actually improves your chances of hearing from them sooner rather than later as well. And it's because there's nobody around to distract them from thoughts of you. Rebounds, of course, do usually end, as I mentioned earlier, but that will delay the amount of time it takes for them to want to reach out to you. And if you have a lot of mutual friends who are talking to your ex about all these amazing things that are going on in your life, maybe you dropped a little bit of weight, maybe you've taken up a new hobby and you're getting great at it. Those are the kinds of things that mutual friends might share with your ex, and it makes you look incredibly attractive. And again, it's because it showcases the fact that you don't need them to have an amazing, fulfilling life. And that scares them, and it makes them wonder if they're missing out. Now let's talk about why you shouldn't reach out no matter how much time has passed. First of all, it reinforces for them, as I've mentioned already, that you're still needy. But it also tells them that you don't really have boundaries, not ones you can hold at least. And especially if you're the guy and we're talking about an avoidant ex who is a woman, they need to feel emotional safety with you. And if they can't trust you to keep your word, if they can't trust you to hold your boundaries, then they're never going to feel totally safe with you. And they've got to feel totally safe with you in order to want to come back to you. But you reaching out also removes the consequence to them of them losing you permanently. That is a huge motivator for them. The idea that you might be genuinely moving on and never coming back. And if you occasionally find reasons to reach out, then that totally destroys that argument. But also, if you reach out occasionally, you'll never know if they would have eventually reached out on their own. And when you reach out from neediness and fear, and let's be honest, those are the only real reasons why you would, it pushes them even further into avoidance because you begin to chase them. And when somebody with an anxious attachment style chases an avoidant, it pushes them further away. But also have some self-respect here. If no matter how much time passes, they can't bring themselves to choose you, then that's all the answer you need. You deserve someone who thinks you're too valuable to lose. And if that's not them, then you need to find the person who does think that.